I never thought I'd ever see you again. You know,
what if I told you that some of Hollywood's biggest stars had a smoky secret? These aren't just your typical cigarettes. We're talking about cigars, and not just any cigars, but the finest, the boldest, and sometimes the most notorious smokes in Tinseltown. Get ready to dive into the world of the 35 worst cigar smokers in Hollywood history. Number 35, Orson Welles. Imagine being a cinema genius at just 25 years old. Orson Welles didn't just create masterpieces. He indulged in one of Hollywood's most luxurious habits. When he was just 25 years old, Welles conceived, wrote, and directed Citizen Kane in 1941, considered by many cineasts to be the finest and most innovative American film ever made. The larger-than-life cinema icon, who went on to produce 4 more masterpieces, was, as turns reviled and revered by his peers. Welles was a lover of the good life, especially fine cigars. He intentionally wrote cigar-smoking characters, such as Touch of Evil's police captain Hank Quinlan, into his films.
Milton Berle, 20 seconds to curtain, stand by for makeup.
Stand by for what?
Number 34, Milton Berle. What if your love for cigars was so intense, even your wives supported it? Milton Berle's cigar passion was legendary. Most men would be thrilled if their wives relished the smoke wafting from their cigars. Berle must be ecstatic, as all 3 of his spouses supported his hankering for Havanas. Even Marilyn Monroe, with whom the entertainer had a short fling before she became a star, savored the aroma of his cigars. Uncle Milty, who regularly tried to wean his friends off cigarettes and onto cigars, once bought a box of small cigars for the blonde bombshell, hoping to persuade her to switch. Berle's second wife, Ruth, not only supported his cigar habit, she showed ingenuity in doing so. During their honeymoon in Paris, Ruth went shopping for an evening bag, trying larger and larger sizes until she found one that could fit 4 of Milty's mammoth Cuban. Before flying on to Rome, Berle packed some 500 Havanas, but customs officials there informed him that visitors were limited to 100 cigars. Nonplussed, Ruth pulled out a cigar from her bag and asked Berle for a light. She nearly choked to death smoking it, Berle recalled, but it enabled us to bring another 100 cigars in. Number 33, David Letterman. Caught on camera sneaking puffs during commercial breaks, David Letterman's cigar antics were as iconic as his joke. An on-again, off-again smoker, Letterman has brought cigar notoriety to late-night television. He would frequently sneak puffs from a double Corona-sized smoke during commercial break. Often, the camera would catch him in the act, smoke rising past Letterman's face as he wore a "who me" expression. Guests would arrive on his show bearing Cuban gifts, but few made more impact than Madonna, who in a 1994 appearance used a cigar and colorful language in a way that needed no clarification from Freud.
Sorry, is Monica Geller coming? I was told she was.
Dr. Burke, it's me.
Number 32, Tom Selleck. Think reading a script can't get any better? Tom Selleck thinks differently, with a Monte Cristo number 2 in hand. One of the best times to smoke a cigar is while he's reading a script, says the former star of Magnum P.I. One of the best cigars he smokes is a Monte Cristo number 2. It turns out that Selleck used to be a big fan of Cuban Cohiba cigars. He's become a bit less enthusiastic about them for reasons we all understand. If you're not familiar with Tom Selleck, 78 years of age, he became successful as an actor at a relatively late age. Before he landed Magnum P.I. at 35 years old, Selleck made 7 failed TV pilots in the first 11 years in show business, and finally became somewhat recognized when he had a recurring role on the hit TV show The Rockford Files. Still, many thought he got the role of Thomas Magnum because of his good looks. He kind of laughs at that.
Hey, you want to go for a ride?
No thanks.
No thanks.
Number 31, Dennis Hopper. Known for his wild roles and wilder lifestyle, Dennis Hopper's vices have a twist after sobriety: cigars and secret marijuana. Often typecast as the maniacal bad guy, the star of Easy Rider and Apocalypse Now has appeared in ads, cigar in hand, for Punch cigars and e-bill watches. By the early 80s, Hopper's consumption of alcohol and drugs had reached frightening proportions. I was doing half a gallon of rum with a fifth of rum on the side, 28 beers and 3 grams of cocaine a day. And that wasn't getting high. That was just to keep going, man, he said. After 2 psychotic episodes and psychiatric hospitalization, he gave up alcohol and cocaine. Celebrating his sobriety, he told interviewers his only vices were coffee and cigars, but he continued secretly smoking marijuana.
I never thought you British could get so emotional, especially in a public place.
I apologize for making
Number 30, Marlene Dietrich. Glamour and cigars? Marlene Dietrich was a trailblazer, breaking norms with her iconic cigar moment. The highest paid actress of her time, the glamorous Dietrich was one of the first Hollywood sex symbols and was often seen on screen with a smoke. You can see in many of the stills that she is usually smoking a regular cigarette. In other clips, she's using a delicate cigarette holder. So what would be her choice of cigar? She certainly was non-conventional. No doubt the cigar would have been Cuban. And in the 30s and 40s, and beyond the choice of many cigar smokers, the lengths ranged from 9 1/4 to 4 inches in the ring from 38 to 52. The larger cigars of today, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, wouldn't have had a place in the industry back then, nor would the cigar smoker have accepted it. The flavor is in the wrapper. Why kill that with 50 pounds of filler?
Last week we saw Sammy Davis Jr. You gotta see this show. What a performer.
Number 29, Sammy Davis Jr. Ever wondered what the Rat Pack's secret weapon was? For Sammy Davis Jr., it was his love for cigar. A member of the smoking Rat Pack, Davis entertained audiences with his singing, dancing, acting, and impression. Sammy Davis Jr. was a highly popular actor, comedian, singer, and dancer. He was also part of the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, with whom he starred in several films. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, the multi-talented Davis continued his prolific output. He maintained his musical career, releasing albums well into the late 70s, and getting his first #1 chart hit with 1972's Candyman. Davis appeared in films such as 1981's The Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds and Roger Moore, and 1989's Tap with Gregory Hines.
You know what? I'll decide if it makes any sense or not, okay? Go and take it.
Number 28, James Woods. Can you imagine storing fine cigars in Tupperware? James Woods did, and he loved it. The Monte Cristo #2 loving Woods, a reformed Hollywood bad boy, has received critical accolades for roles in The Onion Fields, Salvador, and Ghosts of Mississippi. Woods' opinions carry over to such everyday considerations as cigar storage. He is unashamed to admit that, in spite of the elegant Dunhill humidor that graces a shelf in his library, he stores most of his prized cigars in a Tupperware container with a natural sponge and some distilled water. With his trademark grin and a devilish gleam in his eye, he says, "Aficionado my ass, I just love smoking cigars." As he takes the lid off the box and proffers a Hayo de Monterrey, he adds, "The humidor is such a pain in the ass. I take them out and roll them every once in a while, and if they sound right and they smell right and they're not flaking, they are fine."
Of teenage kids in their early 20s.
Number 27, Bill Cosby. From comedic mishaps to winter woes, Bill Cosby's cigar tales are as funny as his stand-up. There's something about winter that doesn't seem so funny to the man who has made millions laugh. In 1994, Cosby was watching the ladies' figure skating finals in the Winter Olympics on TV, puffing away on an ash. Suddenly, Tonya Harding began to cry during her routine. No, Nancy Kerrigan hadn't just blasted her with a bazooka. The problem was a wayward shoelace. Mesmerized by the drama, Cosby took his cigar, which he had placed in an ashtray, and stuck it in his mouth, ash end first. His tongue told him he had instantly made a very serious mistake. 2 winters earlier, the comedian experienced another tobacco tribulation. As he walked about Manhattan with a cigar, the 38-degree chill turned my warm, succulent Corona into a piece of cold, soggy rutabaga. Stopping in a store that sold expensive gadgets for the man who has everything, as he described it, Cosby hoped to find some device that would keep his cigar warm. No such luck. What kind of store was this? He ruminated. How could a man have everything if he didn't have a thing to keep his cigar warm? Number 26, Mikhail Baryshnikov. From ballet slippers to Cuban Dunhills, Mikhail Baryshnikov's cigar journey is as graceful as his dance move. Boyishly cute, diminutive, and strong as a bull, but as graceful as any gazelle or swan. Mikhail Baryshnikov is a household name even to non-Baleomain, widely considered to be one of the greatest and biggest names in dance. In 1977, Mikhail made his film debut in The Turning Point in 1977, a part written especially for him, where he played Yuri, a superstar ballet defector from Russia who beds more ballerinas than he dances with. Kelsey was also slated to co-star, but she wanted no part of Hollywood, had objections to the storyline, and soon after the two split. The movie went on to be nominated for 11 Oscars, including one for Mikhail. The golf-loving ballet legend, who's partial to vintage Cuban Dunhills, was introduced to cigars by director Milos Forman.
on condition that you yourself return the prisoner of Zenda to me alive.
Number 25, Douglas Fairbanks Jr. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. lived through silent films, talkies, and TV, all while enjoying his cigars. What a life. The smoking screen legend's career spanned silent movies, sound pictures, and TV, including the show Douglas Fairbanks Presents. The son of silent screen swashbuckling hero Douglas Fairbanks Sr., he managed to create his own image despite playing a few similar roles himself, in part by using his urbane charm and good looks to help him gain social position. Fairbanks began his film career early, in 1923, in Stephen Steps Out, and followed that with such films as Stella Dallas in 1925, A Woman of Affairs in 1928, and The Power of the Press, 1928. All silent films.
Back and forth here, you're shaking your head, you're laughing. What's the problem?
Number 24, Gregory Hines. From announcing his daughter's birth to starring on Broadway, Gregory Hines' cigar journey is heartfelt and fascinating. A connoisseur of Davidoffs, the Broadway veteran and tap dance extraordinaire has starred in many stage musicals, winning a coveted Tony for Jelly's Last Jam in 1992. Hines began smoking cigars 22 years ago, he says. My daughter was born November 16, 1970, and I bought a box of cigars to give out, he recalls. They were just typical cigars that said it's a girl. It was a very happy time for me, and I was smoking them, and I liked them. I just felt so content and happy that I'd had a daughter. She was so beautiful and healthy. So I started smoking on a daily basis. They weren't expensive. They were just whatever I could get my hands on. They cost maybe $1 or $1.50. But then, he says, he stopped for a while. I was only 24 years old at the time, he says, and my father told me I looked stupid with a cigar in my mouth. He started again about 9 years later. I was in a film, Wolfen, with Albert Finney, Hines says. Finney had Monte Cristos, lots of them. We were supposed to play best friends in the movie, so he said we should spend a lot of time together. He was supposed to smoke the cigars in the movie too, and he asked me if I liked cigars. And I said I used to smoke them, but I hadn't had one in years. So he gave me about 10 Monte Cristos, and that was that. Number 23, Ernie Kovacs. Smoking 20 Cuban double Coronas a day, Ernie Kovacs was the epitome of TV excess. The 50s TV genius smoked 20 Cuban double Coronas a day, and his commercials with his wife, actress Eddie Adams, for sponsor Consolidated Cigars, Dutch Masters, and Muriel Cigars are considered classics. Nothing about Kovacs, a TV writer, director, producer, and star, was halfway. He lived extravagantly and worked so frenetically that he had shows on all 4 of the 1950s TV networks. When he died, his philosophy of excess was extolled on his tombstone. Nothing in moderation.
There is no one else in this entire office that I could possibly ask to share such a horrible
Number
job.
22, Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage's offbeat roles match his cigar passion. Both are intense and unforgettable. A cigar-smoking comic book lover, Cage has forged a flourishing career playing offbeat characters in such films as Leaving Las Vegas. Nicolas Cage, born Nicholas Kim Coppola on January 7, 1964, is an American actor, producer, and director, having appeared in over 60 films, including Raising Arizona in 1987, The Rock in 1996, Face Off 1997, Gone in 60 Seconds 2000, Adaptation 2002, National Treasure 2004, Ghost Rider 2007, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans 2009, and Kick-Ass 2010.
How's it going? Hey, food.
Whoa. Number 21, Robert De Niro. What's scarier than a Robert De Niro character? De Niro puffing on a Casablanca half Jeroboam Maduro. What's scarier than a pathological homicidal ex-con stalking your family all over Cape Fear, South Carolina? A pathological homicidal ex-con who's chewing on a Casablanca half Jeroboam Maduro. Come out, wherever you are. American method actor, director, and producer. His first major film roles were in Bang the Drum Slowly and Mean Streets, both in 1973. In 1974, he played the young Vito Corleone in The Godfather Part 2, a role that won him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. De Niro's brand of method acting includes employing whatever extreme tactic he feels is necessary to elicit the best performance from those with whom he is working.
Man,
Are you okay?
Yes, no, it's all right.
Number 20, James Coburn. Coolness personified. James Coburn saved the world and smoked cigars while doing it. What does the coolest person of all do? Save the free world as our man Flint? Escape the Nazis in The Great Escape? Win an Oscar at the age 70? Smoke cigars? Answer, All of the above. James Harrison Coburn Jr. was an American film and television actor who appeared in nearly 70 films and made over 100 television appearances during his 45-year career. He played a wide range of roles and won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor as Glenn Whitehouse in the film Affliction.
A live concert, to me, is
Elvis
exciting
Presley, the king
because
of
of
rock
all
and
the
roll, had a taste for
electricity.
cigars, immortalized on his own cigar brand. It's hard to be the king of rock and roll and distance yourself from the little indulgences that come with it, but Presley did so while drinking. He did, however, enjoy smoking cigars. The king of rock and roll was immortalized on his own cigar last year, 21 years after his death. Elvis Presley was known to have smoked both cigars and cigarettes at different points in his life. In his early years, he was more of a cigarette smoker and was often seen smoking on stage and in various public appearances. As his career progressed, he developed a taste for cigars as well. Elvis was well known to enjoy smoking different types of cigars, including high-quality Cuban cigars. However, he was also known to smoke cigarettes, particularly during his later years when his health was in decline. Overall, Elvis Presley's smoking preference seemed to evolve over time, and he was known to enjoy both cigars and cigarettes at various points in his life.
Either you bring the water to L.A. or you bring
Number
L.A.
18,
to the water.
John Huston. Directing classics while indulging in cigars, John Huston epitomized the good life. Huston once described movie directing as a left-handed form of human endeavor and lived as though he tolerated his calling only as a way to finance his taste for the finer masculine endeavors, which famously included cigars, liquor, women, and gambling. That outlook didn't stop him, however, from putting out some of the finest films ever made: The Maltese Falcon, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, The African Queen, and almost single-handedly creating the film noir genre. Number 17, Jim Belushi. From comedy to deep conversations, Jim Belushi's love for cigars adds flavor to his life. The actor has likened cigar smoking to marbles, a guy kind of thing. He says some of his best conversations with men have been conducted over a cigar, such as a Por la Renaga Nacionales. He smokes 2 or 3 a day and enjoys the fuller flavor of the Nicaraguan cigar. As I get older, I like a fuller draw, Belushi said. It's also very flavorful, with no bitterness. It's right on this side of the line of being bitter, maybe the last half inch.
Well, you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up to say
Number
to your
16,
mother.
Sylvester Stallone. Between Rocky and Rambo, Sylvester Stallone's true passion lies in premium cigars. Somewhere between Rocky and Rambo lies Stallone, the connoisseur. While most of his more famous on-screen personas do not suggest a reflective side, this is exactly what the private Stallone pursues in his love affair with premium cigar, paired with Armagnac or vintage wine. He's most nettled by acquaintances who cage rare cigars only to let them go out after 4 or 5 puffs. We know the tough guy thing is just for the movie. Do you really want him mad at you?
Can I help you?
Yes, I'm here to fill out a signature card for a new account.
And do you know your
Number
account
15, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg's eclectic career matches her unpredictable cigar choices. If there's anyone who's hard to pigeonhole, it's Goldberg. She's been nominated for an Oscar for her performance in The Color Purple and been named Best Supporting Actress in Ghost. Her screwball stand-up routines are renowned, but she has also hosted a talk show in which she explored serious subjects. She's just as difficult to classify when it comes to cigars.
Oh, Bob.
While she prefers small cigars, she's been known to light up a big Cohiba now and then. Number 14, John Wayne. Iconic westerns and custom cigars, John Wayne was the ultimate cowboy. The Western's icon and Oscar winner for his performance in the 1969 classic True Grit smoked large, custom-made cigars. Cigars meant different things in the Old West. When John Wayne was seen enjoying a cigar, it usually seemed to be just that, a moment of enjoyment, relaxation, or contemplation. Think of the opening scene of Chisholm, in which he sits atop his horse on a hill, surveying his domain, unaware of the forces of history heading his way. In this film and several others, cigars for that moment of kicking back, showing the Duke was just one of the guys.
I'd like a plain omelet, no potatoes on the plate, a cup of coffee, and a side order of wheat toast.
Number 13, Jack Nicholson. From cigarettes to Cuban cigars, Jack Nicholson's smoking evolution is legendary. The 3-time Academy Award winner had been a long-time cigarette smoker when he took up golf in the early 1990s. He found himself smoking half a pack during a round to calm his nerves, so he decided to switch to cigars from around the 5th hole on. The change helped to relax him, and eventually Nicholson got down to a 12 handicap. The actor first became enamored of Cuban cigars in 1973 when he was making The Last Detail, insisting that the petty officer character be played by a cigar smoker. The picture was shot in Canada, offering easy access to Havanas. When he resumed cigar smoking in the 1990s, one of Nicholson's favorite haunts was the Forum in Los Angeles, where he would attend most of the Lakers' home games. At one time, he was able to light up right on the arena floor, but as California anti-smoking laws got tougher, he found himself relegated to the hallway and eventually outside the building itself. But I get around it, he said in 1995. I sneak into the men's room at halftime, like when I was in high school, and take my drags there.
I don't know, it's just a date.
Oh. Yeah. Number 12, Paul Anka. Paul Anka's dedication to Cuban cigars is unwavering. He knows what he likes. The 1950s teen idol and composer of My Way likes his cigars one way, and that's Cuban. Cohibas are his favorite. Because he was so focused on his career, afraid to do anything that might damage his throat, Anka neither smoked nor drank before he met Paquatrix, but he taught me that cigars are pure, not like cigarettes at all. Once you realize the process of what goes into a cigar, you realize it's not going to hurt you. And with the best wine, you'll never get a headache. Consequently, Anka will not compromise when it comes to wines or cigars. I'll do a Jamaican or Dominican now and then, he says, but I've been into the Cuban thing for years and I pretty much stay with that. I'm used to the taste, and there's no reason to jump all over the place, unless you're experimenting. After lunch with coffee, I may smoke a Partagas, and at night a Cohiba. I used to smoke Monte Cristos a lot, and I still like them, but I jumped over to Cohibas. I love smoking when I'm in the studio, he says.
I don't think I ever really thought of it in terms of that. Like, I didn't go...
Number 11, Danny DeVito. Cigar on a transatlantic flight? Danny DeVito's cigar story is one for the book. After being turned on to cigars by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor, director, producer moved over the years from Cuban Cohibas to Partagas City D No. 4s, Diplomaticos, and Bolivars. His favorite cigar coup occurred on a flight from Europe after filming The War of the Roses in the late 1980s, when he asked every passenger if they would mind if he smoked his cigar. He got their permission. It was, he recalled, the most enjoyable transatlantic flight I ever had. Number 10, George Hamilton. George Hamilton's passion for cigars started at 17 and led to his own brand. George Hamilton looks at 58 exactly the way a movie star is supposed to look. Perfect. Always impeccably dressed and crisply pressed. Classically tailored with well-polished shoes. Vintage watch gleaming. His eyes are softer than people would expect. Warmer. Full of humor. The actor smoked his first Cuban cigar at the age of 17 on the balcony of the Hotel Nacional in Havana, prior to the revolution. He later created his own brand, so his passion for cigars predates the cigar phenomenon by a generation. As a savvy businessman, he'd like to capitalize on a favorable trend. I think people started smoking cigars because they thought a cigar as some sort of symbol of success, he says. I've always enjoyed cigars, but I smoked them without the fanaticism that is going on now. And with it, there's been a huge shift in the bar business. I've seen people start to linger over cigars. People rooted to chairs, starting to bond over cigars. I saw this throwback to almost Victorian life, where people were starting to puff and smoke and drink port and sherries and single malts. And it was wonderful.
I'd like to make a collect call to an Eddie Moscone from a Jack Walsh.
Number 9, Joe Pantoliano. Combining work and pleasure, Joe Pantoliano's love for cigars made it into his films. Actor and co-founder of the Grand Havana Room in Los Angeles, Joey Pants enjoys a broad spectrum of cigars, from Fuentes to Cubans. Pantoliano's character in Bound does not smoke cigars, and in The Fugitive, Jones does the honors. In many of his movies, Pantoliano has taken special delight in combining work with pleasure. You know, I'd do a movie. I'd call David off and say, listen, I'm doing a movie. I want to smoke your cigars in the movie. Like when I did Steal Big, Steal Little, a 1995 film with Andy Garcia that did not do boffo box office. I smoked all the Fuente cigars. Pantoliano loves the Fuente family and their Dominican cigars. Fuentes and a friend sent him 6 boxes of Don Carlos cigars as a wedding present in 1994. But he is diverse enough to his tastes to spread around the exposure on the big screen, and he's not reluctant to get free cigars.
You broke the law. You are
Number 8, Harrison Ford. Hollywood's star of the century found peace and relaxation in cigars. The reluctantly hunky Hollywood heavyweight has been dubbed star of the century for his reign as the all-time top box office draw. Revered for his honest and moral on-screen presence, Ford has appeared in an eclectic mix of films such as the Star Wars trilogy, Witness, and Clear and Present Danger. A member of the $20 million per picture club, Ford shies away from the Hollywood scene, preferring the company of his family on their large Wyoming ranch where he can puff in peace.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Come here.
Number 7. Michael Richards. Kramer's cigars on Seinfeld were more than just props. They sparked a trend. TV's Kramer brought the cigar back to the sitcom. His Seinfeld smoking misadventures include trading in Cubans, the people not the cigar, and burning down a cabin with a discarded stogie. With an actor's customary bravado firmly intact, Richard feels more than a little bit responsible for starting the whole cigar renaissance. After Kramer started smoking a cigar, the whole cigar thing became more in. Everybody was smoking cigars, and I think Kramer had a lot to do with men getting into cigars. Don't worry, Michael. We won't tell Schwarzenegger or DeVito. In fact, the only reason why Richard started smoking cigars was because people were continually slipping him one, usually with an invitation to play golf. The assumption was that if Kramer smoked cigars and played golf, Richards must smoke cigars and play golf. But Richards doesn't play golf. Still, who could blame him for enjoying the experience of a fine cigar now and then? After all, a cigar is more than just a mere comedic prop.
You've been hanging around since I got here.
Number 6. Peter Falk. Just one more thing. Peter Falk's cigars were as iconic as Columbo's trench coat. For TV buffs, the image is indelible. The rumpled police detective with the unruly hair and the wrinkled trench coat heads for the door, his back to the suspect. Then he pauses, taking a puff from his cheap cigar as he cocks his head to one side and says, one more thing. The murderer is as good as jail. Like his Columbo character, Falk doesn't make any claims to being a cigar connoisseur. I'll smoke anything anybody gives me, he once said. I'm not particular.
I got it. Haddock. That's funny. I got a haddock too. What do you take for a haddock? Well, sometimes I take aspirin or something.
Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx's cigar misadventures are as humorous as his comedy routine. Cigar sometimes got the comedian into trouble. Once, his third wife, Eden, objected to his stinky old cigar and ordered him to extinguish it or get a new wife. On an earlier occasion, Marx splurged for a 10-cent pure Havana after spotting an advertisement that promised 30 glorious minutes in Havana.
Was I in here last night and did I spend a $20 bill?
Yeah.
When the cigar lasted only 20 minutes, Groucho demanded a replacement. Somehow, each subsequent cigar met the same fate, until after the 5th one, the merchant wised up and tossed Groucho out. Number 4. W.C. Fields. Fields' cigar props made him the lovable misogynist we remember today. Fields had a successful career playing hard-drinking, hard-living, yet lovable misogynists in such films as Tilly and Gus, 1933, My Little Chickadee, 1940, and Never Give a Sucker an Even Break in 1941. Bulbous-nosed, nasal-voiced comedic actor started out as a vaudeville juggler, teaching himself the skill with cigar boxes. An occasional cigar smoker, Fields used cigars as props in many of his movies to make him look boorish, according to biographer James Curtis.
How do you feel about that?
Well, there's more permissiveness today, but don't forget that's 10 years ago.
Number 3, Alfred Hitchcock. Suspense, thrillers, and cigars. Hitchcock's trademarks. The master of suspense, who gave us such thrillers as North by Northwest, Psycho, and The Birds, was frequently seen with his trademark bowler hat and cigar. Hitchcock smoked all his adult life and constantly while directing his more than 50 films. He made cameo appearances in 37 of his movies, at least once seen puffing a cigar. In 1947's The Paradise Case, often he would not face the camera, but his bald scalp would give him away. Frequently, he carried a musical instrument. In The Birds, he is seen walking dogs out a door as Tippi Hedren enters. Occasionally, he was just a silhouette, an image that became something of a trademark. Number 2, Charlie Chaplin. From poverty to cigars, Charlie Chaplin used them as symbols in his film. The perceived connection between cigars and wealth was one that actor-director Chaplin used to great effect in his film. Having survived a poverty-stricken childhood, Chaplin's sympathies were always with the underdog, famously symbolized in his character, the Tramp. Although the Tramp was not above picking up the cast-off cigar butts of the rich, In City Lights, Chaplin used a big cigar both as a symbol of the upper class with its wealth and power and as a spear to harpoon it.
True story, really happened. There was a great actor, and his name was Wilton LaCoy, and there's a Broadway actor.
George Burns. George Burns credited his long life to cigars. Could his secret work for you too? An impromptu singing gig in a candy store at the age of 7, to his enduring partnership with Gracie Allen, to solo stand-up comedy acts in his late 90s, Burns kept American audiences in stitches through most of the 20th century. Invariably, he smoked his trustworthy El Producto cigars during his act, not because he couldn't afford a more expensive cigar, but because they stayed lit on stage longer than the more tightly packed Havana smoke. If you have to stop your act to keep lighting your cigar, the audience goes out. He once cracked. Legendary star of vaudeville, radio, TV, and film, resurrected his movie career in the 1970s, with starring roles in The Sunshine Boys and Oh God. Burns, who lived to 100, credited his 10 to 15 cigar a day habit over a 70-year span with not only keeping him spry on stage, but also with helping him to outlive his physician. I'd taken my doctor's advice and quit smoking when he advised me to, Burns quipped at age 98. I wouldn't have lived to go to his funeral. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this trip through Hollywood's smoky past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content. Check out our other videos for more celebrity secrets and behind-the-scenes stories. The bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.